Hi, so we're going to go over the problems that were assigned, page 49. So let's make sure we understand it. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take negative 4, multiply times 3, and I'm going to get negative 12. In order to get a negative number, I need to multiply a positive times a negative. And I want to know which one of the factors of 12 would add up to 11. So I know that 1 times 12, and I think we could stop there because 1 negative 1x plus 12x would give me positive 11. So I'm going to replace the 11x with those. So the bookends come down, the 3x squared comes down, and the negative 4 comes down. And then I'm going to plug negative 1x plus 12x in. I have in common there, I have an x, so that leaves me 3x minus 1. This sign comes straight down, the middle sign always comes down. I can factor a 4 out of both of those, and that's going to leave me 3x minus 1. So my answer is 3x minus 1, and my leftover stuff is x plus 4. There's our answer. That's our answer right there. Problem number 8, do the same thing. I'm going to multiply 2 times 5, and that's going to give me a positive 10. In order to get a positive number when multiplying two numbers together, so we multiplied 2 times 5 to get positive 10. We know both numbers need to be positive because if you look, everything's positive in the equation. So 1 times 10 gives me 10. Can I add 1 and 10 to get 7? Nope. What about 2 times 5? Do 2 and 5 add up to give 7? Yes. So I'm going to put 2x, positive 2x, and positive 5x, and I'm going to replace the 7 with it. So I'm going to bring the two ends down, and between those I'm going to stick that, whatever order I want. So I'm going to go plus 2x and plus 5x. I'm then going to look at my first two terms, and it looks like I could factor an x out. That's going to leave me 5x plus 2. This middle sign always comes straight down. It doesn't appear that I can factor anything out, so I'm going to use a 1. A 1 is, 1 factors out of everything. So that's going to leave me this. Now these are both the same, so 5x plus 2 is my first set of parentheses, and then x plus 1 is my other set. And there's my answer. Problem number 9. I'm going to multiply 6 times 3, and that's going to give me positive 18. So now we have to think about this. That's a negative 11. Well, in order to get a positive number when multiplying two numbers together, I have to have the exact same sign. So in this case, they're both going to be negative. Okay, so 1 times 18. If I add those together, that would get to negative 19. That doesn't help me. What about if I go 2 times 9? Yeah, 2 and 9, if they're both negative and I add them together, I get negative 11. So I have negative 2x, negative 9x, and we're going to replace this where the 11 is. So I'm going to bring the ends down. They don't change. And then I'm going to plug negative 2x minus 9x into the problem. I'm going to look at my first two terms. It appears that I have an x in common, and I also have a 2 in common, okay, because 2 goes into 6 and 2. If I factor 2 and an x out of 6x squared, I'm left with 3x. If I factor 2x out of 2x, I have to keep a placeholder. It's a minus 1 because that minus sign. Remember, the middle sign comes down. What do I have in common between 9 and 3? Yeah, I can factor a 3 out. So if I factor a 3 out of 9, that leaves me 3x. If I factor 3 out of 3, it leaves me a 1. Now remember, I factored that negative out in the beginning, so this sign has to change, so that's now negative. Those are both the same. And then what do I have left? 2x minus 3. Done. Problem number 10. I'm going to multiply those together, so I get a negative 12. In order to get a negative number when I multiply two numbers together, one has to be positive, one has to be negative, so we have to figure out where the signs go. So I know that 1 times 12, if I subtracted those, no, I'm not going to get the 1. If I go to about 2 and 6, well, I can't really subtract those and get the negative 1. 3 and 4 are 1 apart, so these will definitely work. So I want to make sure I have a positive 3x and a negative 4x. That would give me the negative 1x. Remember, there's a 1 right there. Okay? If you flip-flopped it, it would give you a positive 1x. The ends come down, 4x squared and minus 3. And then I'm going to replace right there. I'm going to go plus 3x minus 4x. What do I have in common between those two? I have an x. I'm going to factor a 4x out. And then if I factor an x out of 3x, I'm left with a 3. Remember, the middle sign comes down. It doesn't appear I can factor anything out of 4x and 3, so I'm going to use 1 as a placeholder. Remember, I'm factoring a negative out, so if I factor a negative out of a negative, that becomes positive. If I factor a negative out of a negative, that becomes positive. These are both the same. And then whatever I have left, x minus 1, is right here. That's my answer. Problem number 11, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to multiply the last times the first, which is negative 24. In order to get a negative number, I have to have a positive and a negative. I want to figure out which are positive and which are negative, though it add up to positive 5. So it doesn't appear that 1 and 24 would work. It doesn't appear that 2 and 12 would work. But 3 and 8 seems interesting. They're only 5 apart. Okay, so I'm going to have a negative 3x and a positive 8x. If I add those together, I would get that 5. So I'm going to replace that. So I have 4x squared, and I have minus 6. And then I'm going to replace that in between the two. Doesn't matter the order you do it. You could have had plus 8x and minus 3x, and your answer is still going to be the same at the end. Take a look at your first two terms. It appears you have an x in common, so that leaves you 4x minus 3. The middle sign comes straight down. What do I have in common between 8x and 6? Yeah, I have a 2. If I factor a 2 out of 8x, I'm left with 4x. Minus, if I factor a 2 out of 6, I'm left with a 3. Those are the same. What do I have left? X plus 2. That's the other set of parentheses. That's my answer. And problem number 12, I guess I didn't write down. Okay. Sometimes this might happen. Sometimes you have a greatest common factor you have to deal with first. So if you look at 7, 42, and 35, 7 can factor out of all three. Okay? So if I factor a 7 out, then I'm left with x squared plus 6x plus 5. Okay? This 7 is going to be part of the answer, so I'm going to bring this down here. So I'm going to have my parentheses. So notice this is part of the answer. Now I'm just going to take a look at x squared plus 6x plus 5. I'm going to factor out like normal. I'm going to put a 1 out front. 5 times 1. I'm not going 5 times 7 because the 7 is already over here. 5 times 1 is positive 5. And both terms have to be positive. So I have positive 1 and positive 5. X and x, and we're going to plug in. So I'm going to go x squared plus 1x plus 5x plus 1, or plus 5, excuse me. Factor an x out of both, so I'm going to get x plus 1. Factor a positive, remember that middle sign comes down. Factor a 5 out, x plus 1. So then I get x plus 1, because those are the same, and then whatever I have left is x plus 5. So notice I have a 7 in the beginning. I have a greatest common factor. Please be aware of that. The next example, and these aren't in your book, I just made these up. It looks like I could factor an x out of all of them. So if I factor an x out of x to the third, I'm left with x to the second. If I factor an x out of x to the second, I'm left with 4x. And if I factor x out of 4x, I'm left with just plus 4. So this x is going to be part of the answer. We'll bring it down here. Okay, I'm not worried about using that x anymore. I know it's part of the answer, so I'm just going to factor this. Okay, there's a 1 out front. 4 times 1 is 4. And in order to get a positive 4, I need a positive positive or negative negative. You look at that sign, it tells you they're both negative. So I'm going to say, okay, well, 1 and 4, if they're both negative, gives me negative 5. That's not going to work. What about 2 and 2 both being negative? Yeah, those add up to that. So I have negative 2x and negative 2x. Negative 2x combined with negative 2x is negative 4x. So my ends come down, x squared plus 4. I'm going to put that in between the two. So I have an x in common, x minus 2 that's left over. Middle sign comes down. I can factor a 2 out of both of those. Make sure you change this sign so that becomes a minus 2. So I'm going to get x minus 2 and x minus 2. Oh, let's write it over here, though. Oh, remember I had that x that I had factored out in the very beginning. It was a greatest common factor. So this is the entire answer. Don't forget the x. Okay, sometimes I can factor a number and a letter out of everything. So I think I could divide everything by 10 right here. So 10 that comes out front. But I could also factor an x out of everything. If I factor a 10x out of 20x squared, I'm left with 2x squared. Minus, if I factor a 10x out of 50x, I'm left with 5x. And if I factor a 10x out of 30x, I'm left with minus 6. So this is going to be part of our answer, so we're going to bring it down over here. Okay, so the key with these is double checking, is there a greatest common factor to do first? Normally they'll be bigger numbers, so it looks like a nasty problem. But this is not too bad to do, so we're going to go ahead and factor this like normal. So I'm going to multiply the last times the first, so I get negative 12. In order to get a negative number, I need to have one of each. So I know that 1 times 12 is 12. I also know that 2 times 6 is 12. And I also know that 3... Oh, you know what? My mistake, my friends. This should have been a 3. I am so sorry. I goofed this one up. So sorry. So let's undo that. All right, so now this might work out. So negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. Okay, in order to get the negative, I have a plus and minus. And I'm going to go, well, I have 1 times 6 is 6. And I have 2 times 3. Well, one of them has to be positive, one has to be negative. So I'm going to say that it's going to be negative 6x plus 1x. That's what we're going to replace right here. So the ends come down, so I get 2x squared minus 3. And in between those, I'm going to put negative 6x plus 1x in whatever order I want. I'm going to factor a 2x out of both of those. That's going to give me x minus 3. Middle sign comes down. Nothing appears to factor out, so I'm going to use a 1 as a placeholder. Okay? These are the same. So x minus 3. What do I have left? 2x plus 1. Okay? With that known, we are going to work on page 51 and 52. And I want you to do 1 through 21 all. Remember, the odd answers are in the PEF folder on Schoology. So you would look for PEF number 10 and then odd answers. Okay? Have a great day, everyone. Take care of one another. Bye.